Ooh, all righty. Let me send the tweet, guys, and then. All righty. God, I remember when I started doing this last year. My face was so freaking fat. Good for me. About the only thing good for me today. Let's see. If you're listening, not live, thank you for listening. If you do hop in, pull up some popcorn. I'm sorry for this light. I tried putting like pillows and everything in front of it, and I tilted my thing. So, we're going to be here a while. I've got games on. I've got the end of Arizona Baylor on my one screen. I've got Oregon USC over here, and then I'm going to flip it around. Fortunately, my third TV I had to give up for this weekend to my brother. So I only have 2 TVs and a laptop. Brutal. It's brutal out here for your boy. Anyway, what a waste of time that was. I said 24-13. I was off by a touchdown in both directions. This is Missouri Postgame Live. I'm Zach Armilius here, as I am every week. Mizzou does lose to the Oklahoma Sooners 17-6 in Norman. Oklahoma improves to 9-2 on the season, 5-2 in SEC play. Look, let's start with OU. They're a home win away against LSU from making the playoff. Now, with as bad of an offense as they do have, and look, it is a bad offense. There certainly is a chance they lose that football game. But you got to give Brent Venables a ton of credit. That defense is incredible. It's a really good defense. And after they lost to Ole Miss and they had lost to Texas with Missouri still on the schedule, LSU hadn't quite fallen apart yet. Alabama on the road, at Tennessee, that thing could have unraveled quickly. And all they've done is win football games. And Brent Venables deserves a ton of credit for that. OU is a good that defense is top 3 in the country, and I don't know if it's number 3. I don't think it, and I think it's above number 3. It might be a top 2 defense, and might be the best. It is unreal how good of a job Brent has done, with that defense this year. They didn't even have their best defensive lineman, and they still just did whatever they wanted to defensively today for the most part, with R. Mason Thomas out. And he was out last week, and they still forced a bunch of turnovers against Alabama. They're a home win away. Like, that thing could have unraveled quickly, and you could have been staring 8-4, 7-5 in the face. And after last year's 6-6, Venables, I don't think he would have been fired, but he enters next year very much on the hot seat. And now they're going to make the playoff, and he might win Coach of the Year in the SEC. It's going to go to him. It might go to Kiffin with all that shaking out. We'll talk about that Monday, but with all that shaking out with Kiffin, Venables is a very good candidate to win. It's going to probably be Elko, just to be fair, but to win Coach of the Year. And it probably should be Elko. Let me retract my statement. But Venables is certainly a worthy of some consideration. That offense is not good. John Mateer, look, we talked about in the offseason that I was curious to see John Mateer play in a conference where he wasn't so clearly the best athlete on the field. And that's kind of come to fruition. He's been largely mediocre. He did have 2 passing touchdowns today. I believe now he has 10 on the year, which is like wild to say, against 7 interceptions. He did run the ball very effectively today. He is a good player. I'm just not necessarily sure of that OU with this version of this offense. And I think Ben Arbuckle is really good at his job. Can maybe even win a play. And this is going to be taken as a shot. I don't mean it to be a shot. A lot of respect for what Brett's done this year, for what OU could potentially do in the playoffs, if anything, in doing damage. So a lot of credit has to go to Brett and that defense and OU for just winning football games. And look, John Mateer, again, was really their only running option today. He went 18 carries for 60 yards. Xavier Robinson, 12 for 42, but a long of 6. Long of 15 means Missouri gave up no explosives. In the run game, they only gave up one explosive in the pass game. We'll touch on the Missouri defense here in a little bit. Defensively, they were great, as they always are. Part of that was aided because Mizzou has incompetent offensive coaching, and incompetent offensive play calling and decision-making. Here's what it is. We'll get into it. But thank you guys. This is Missouri Postgame Live. We just got rolling. I've got the end of Baylor, Arizona. Hey, man, this is what sidebar. If Arizona wins this game, and they 2 8-3 teams play next week in the what is Arizona State called? Somebody, and both those teams are playing for 9-win and potentially 10-win seasons. That's what this sport's about, not about the stupid playoff. It's good for Arizona, man. Good for Brent Brennan. I'm really happy for him. Anyway, Mizzou. So we've spent the first 5-6 minutes giving props to Oklahoma, and they deserve props. But let's move on to the team that I cover. And so congrats to OU, congrats to their fans. They're going to make the playoff with one more win. And with how mediocre their offense is, there is a chance they lose that game. LSU does still have talent, but I would bet on them winning that game. All righty, let's move on to. I'm trying to think before I keep flip flopping. If I want to go bigger picture or smaller, let's start with small picture with just this game. QB play. I guess we can kind of all tie it together. Bo was really bad today. Now, part of that's the offensive line. He towards the end of the game, when Mizzou was driving to try and make this a one-possession game, he did throw a pretty nice ball to Kevin Coleman, who dropped it. Kevin Coleman's a good receiver. Overall, Bo's numbers don't look too bad. 20 of 36. 36 passes for 231 yards, 2 touchdowns. One was like a desperation heave. The other pick was atrocious. McElroy did a great job of breaking it down. Marquise Johnson goes in motion, so the corner has no one to cover in the flat. He can drop, get depth, and you try to throw a corner route, and there's 2 guys there, and the corner just sinks, and makes an incredible play. McElroy, after so many Joe Tessitore games this year, I was really impressed. McDonough and Greg were really good to listen to. That might be the best broadcast team ESPN has. It might be the best broadcast team in sports, in the sport. I haven't heard enough of TNT's guys, Nestler and Danielson. They're great, but man, you're calling. Today's game will be fun, USC Oregon, but just not a ton of great games. But yeah, just not good enough. Kevin Coleman, 7 catches for 115 yards. A lot of that came at the end. Josh Manning, look, I've harped a lot on Josh Manning, but today I kind of understand why he plays. He has pretty decent hands. I can't see a full 22. I don't know how his route running is, but he's physical and he's a good run blocker. He is. So I understand why he plays. 4 catches, 54 yards. Alubade, 3 catches for 34 yards, and he also drew a couple pass interference calls. So if you want to let's just say 5 catches for 64 yards. I know that's not how that works, but it's kind of, Norfleet, 2 catches, 11 yards. I'm tired of Brett Norfleet hype. He's always hurt, and then against these good teams, he's nowhere to be seen. Granted, the only time they seem to throw him the ball is on a play action little rollout where he leaks out and is 2 yards downfield. And while he's a good athlete, he's not an explosive make you miss athlete unless he's jumping over guys. And yeah. Bo also had a fumble that he recovered, and that was a non-forced fumble. He just fumbled it. Offensively, Ahmad Hardy, 17 carries, 57 yards, 3.4 yards per carry. After the first drive, OU just shut this run game down. Granted, you can do that when you can put 8 guys in the box because you have no faith in Missouri's ability to beat you deep, beat you over the top, beat you in the passing game anywhere. So a lot of credit has to go to the OU defense. He ran for 300 yards last week, and now you play a real team, and he runs for 57. Still difficult to. Jamal Roberts, 10 carries for 14 yards. Awful. He just not a productive Jamal Roberts day. Dude, I am so happy for Arizona football. Like, my brother went to Arizona State, so I shouldn't be happy about them, but, like, good for them. Just the QB play was just not adequate at all. And it goes back to this, man. How many times have we talked about it on this show? Every Monday show, every Saturday show. If you cannot create explosives in the pass game, you're dead. You're dead to rights. We saw it in the first drive of the game. Mizzou is moving the football. They are moving the football. Really, really well conceived drive. You know what? I'm going to say this about Kirby Moore. I don't think he was atrocious today. I actually don't. When you can't throw the football, what are you supposed to do? Now, there are people out there that'll still defend Kirby Moore. Guys, last year's offense sucked too. So, but yeah, Kevin Coleman passed for 3, Ahmad Hardy for 5, Jamal Roberts for 2, Pribula for 8, Hardy for 5, Norfleet for 5. Just they're churning out plays, but then a penalty, incomplete pass. It's now 2nd and 12. Then you get a completed pass to Norfleet. You can't convert the 3rd and 6, and you have to kick a field goal. Pressure on the right side or left side, and it was almost blocked. And Robert Meyer turfed it. You wouldn't in golf. And we'll get back to that. But you're up 3-0. Good drive, but immediately you're put behind the sticks. It's 2nd and 12. Look, 2nd and 12 should not be a death sentence. And it is. It is for this team. And it has been for 2 years because they have no ability to create explosives. Explosives matter. This is not the NFL. In the NFL, you can be what like the Chiefs were last year. And the Chiefs were a good football team that could just churn out 5, 6, play yards of play, 12, 13 play drives. In college, you can't do that. How many of these guys on Mizzou are going to go pro? Ahmad Hardy. I'm not going to put any freshmen on that list, like Alubade, Zollers, any of those guys. But Ahmad Hardy. Kevin Coleman will probably get a look. Caden Green, probably. That's maybe it. Maybe Tollison. He had a really bad game today, and he's had a pretty rough year. Not as bad as, and he had a really nice year last year. He was really good in 23 as well, just aside from the snapping issues, which pretty big deal. But blocking wise, he was good in 23. That's it. You have to be able to churn out explosives. Oh, well, they don't have the talent. Northwestern just put up 35 points with Preston Stone. Minnesota with a freshman quarterback is churning out points. And those two teams have adequate defenses. Even bad teams can churn out explosives. OU's one play today. And Arizona's going to win this game. I might turn this one off. I just went up for it. I turned it on oh, man, this is going to be a fun end of the game. And Arizona scores, and then they get a pick 6. God, keeping Dave Aranda is a joke if you're Baylor. Anyway, USC scores. Good for them. Where was I? You have to be able to churn out scores. They're bailouts, man. I'm not saying every game you need to have an 80-yard touchdown or you need to have a set, whatever. But you need to have an ability to consistently create explosives in the pass game or have a threat. It keeps the safeties out of the box. That's why teams play cushion on good offenses, is because, yes, it is annoying that they can get 5, 6, 7, 8 yards a pop if they come up and tackle. But you'd rather that and force these teams to make mistakes and force field goals than give up 50-yard bombs. That's why defenses run it against competent offenses. And when you play Mizzou, you don't have to do that. You don't have to wait for your underneath game or wait and make Mizzou dry because they can't. You can press up on these receivers because they have no ability to get deep. They have no ability. And part of that is on the seam. It is. It has to be, because I watch a lot of college football. Guys, I've not this weekend. I normally have 3 TVs in my laptop. Like I've said, since I did Alabama a couple years ago, started doing that 5 years ago. My issue with the AP poll is these guys have real jobs. I don't. I mean, I have a job, obviously. I live. But with the jobs they do, and it's a job I would love to have, you can't watch everything. And so if I'm going to be mean, I'm going to critique the AP poll, I'm going to make fun of the AP poll, I need to be able to watch everything. Now, things happen. I have family issues like I've had last week, or I've got like a Halloween party. Things do happen. I can't watch every game every weekend, but I try 10 weeks a year, or three quarters a year to sit in my apartment or sit with friends and just watch games. And I watch a lot of bad teams be able to scheme up explosive pass plays, even with less than adequate talent. And this team can't do it. And it hasn't been able to do it now for 2 years with the same coordinator. This coaching staff, unless they have the ability to simply line it up and run their outside zone down your throat, cannot score points. Last year was a bit of a miss because they did not have the same, although Noel was okay, but they didn't have a Cody Schrader. 2022 was rough because they didn't have, what Cody Schrader became in 23. 21, obviously, they could do it with Beatty. 20, they did it with Roundtree. 23, they were able to do it with Schrader. And this year, they're able to do it with Hardy and Roberts. If they can't run it down your throat, they're screwed. They have no idea how to score points. They just can't do it. It's getting ridiculous at this point that you cannot scheme up explosive pass plays. Oklahoma had one big play today, and it was an explosive pass play where you exploited coverage. You got a receiver. Satania's good. He might not be he's not like a top end of the NFL draft receiver. As far as I know, he may be. If there's an OU fan here, please let me know. I could very much be wrong. And you get a talented wide receiver in one-on-one with a safety and Marvin Burks, who was good today outside of this play. He makes one man miss, or the guy takes a bad angle, whatever. Scores, touchdown, 87-yard touchdown. It didn't require an amazing throw. It didn't require him to juke 17 guys out of their skis. It took, you use the hash marks because in college, because of how narrow the hashes are, there's more space. And it took leverage, and one guy, a college kid who's not going to play in the pros, missing a tackle or taking a bad angle, and boom, 87-yard touchdown. Mizzou hasn't been able to do that now in 2 years, and that falls on the offensive coordinator. Yes, Bo stinks, and Zollers was a freshman. I understand that, and against the OU defense, again, I wasn't asking you to score. I predicted you to score 13 points, and you couldn't even manage that. It's ridiculous. I've made this analogy before. 2013, Mizzou was coming off a really disappointing season in 2012. A lot of injuries. David Yost, just a disastrous play caller that year. They hired Josh Henson. 2013, the second best Mizzou offense in my lifetime with 2007. Even with a backup quarterback and Matty Mock, they were able to make plays. They were able to spread the ball downfield. Now they had elite wide receivers and elite talent, but they were still able to do things. 2014, Josh Henson's still there, and the offense is middling. It does enough to win some games, and they won the SEC East. And then 2015, it was, in a word, a disaster, a complete clown show of an offense. In an unrelated post, in 2022, Mizzou comes off a really disappointing season, where they can't do anything offensively under Eli. They hire Kirby Moore in 2023. Is an amazing offense. Loads of talent, loads of speed, loads of space. It's fun. And then 2024 is middling, and then last year was fine. It was middling, and then this year's been a disaster since the UMass game. And even the UMass game wasn't great. They only scored 42 points, guys. if Eli stays, and we're going to get to Eli because today was a disaster class by him. If Eli stays, you have to bring in a new offensive coordinator. You have to. You have to bring someone in with a passing scheme that isn't archaic by 19. Like the greatest show on turf was in 1999, the St. Louis Rams. You watch any of those highlights, any of those games, their passing attack, which again, very under center passing attack, looks like a modern Lane Kiffin, Eric Morris, some of these guys that have elite passing attacks in college football. It looks like that compared to what Mizzou runs out there. Like Mizzou's pass offense is archaic by 1995 standards. There's no ability to scheme anything. Is part of that, and I'd love to blame the receivers, but it was the same thing last year. So, and you had a better quarterback. He wasn't good last year, but you had a better quarterback, and you had Luther Burden and Theo Weiss. So, at some point, I'm just done with this offensive coordinator. You have to switch him out. Get somebody that has a passing attack. And if this is an Eli thing, it might be an Eli thing. But let's move on to Eli. Eli coaches games. Let me start with this with Eli. I want him to stay. I think he is a net positive coach. Nice play by the Maryland receiver. I think he is a net positive coach from Missouri. I think he does an unbelievable job in recruiting. I think today, not so much, and we'll touch on it here in a second. I think most of the time he does okay in clock management situations, and a lot of college coaches don't. I think he's better than most college coaches in clock management situations. There was one egregious big thing today, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But he coaches games, all games, like he's in the Big Ten West circa 2017. He coaches Oklahoma. He coaches against Oklahoma, Alabama, Vanderbilt, Texas A&M, like that level of team. Like he's at Northwestern and he's playing Illinois or Minnesota or in that era of like Illinois, where those programs are hard, fairly mediocre. That kick on 4th and 3 that got blocked, inexcusable. He should be getting. I go live before the post-game presser, so I'll see the presser and then we'll talk about it more on Monday, maybe when I've calmed down a little bit. That was part of the reason I went on. I talked a little bit before we got into this because when it happened, I was pissed. You have a terrible special teams. Now, if you look at like SP Plus, a lot of that is like their offense is rated pretty highly because of the games against bad teams like Kansas, Louisiana, Central Arkansas. Kansas isn't going to make a freaking bowl game. You're not going to beat a team that made a bowl game, by the way, unless Louisiana might have made a bowl. But outside of that, you will not beat a team that'll make a bowl game this year. Think about that. That kick was inexcusable. Inexcusable. That is cowardly coaching. And I've been on this for a couple years now. I don't know what happened in 2021 for that switch. Because in 2020, he was very aggressive. I'm thinking of the Kentucky game. I'm thinking of the LSU game. I'm thinking even some of the games they lost, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi State that year. He played it very aggressively. The start of 2021, Boston College, Kentucky, some of those games, even though they lost, he did still coach it aggressively. I don't know what happened when they were getting slapped around by Tennessee and Texas A&M. He has become an utter coward at coaching. He just has. That's the only word I have for it. There's no excuse to kick that field goal. You have this is what the point I was going to get. So if you look at your SP Plus, Mizzou is top 30 in offense. Might be top 25. That's a joke. This is an awful offense, but you ran it up against some garbage teams, so including Mississippi State, who's garbage, not going to make a bowl. So congrats to that. It's an awful offense. Your defense is top 10. That's legit. This defense is amazing. I'm going to give them a lot of props here in just a moment. And your special teams is 113th. It's garbage. And you relied on that today twice when you should have gone for it. A joke. Inexcusable kick. You are up 3-0. You have nothing to lose. You win the game, you just ruined a rival's season. Because then OU's not going to go to the playoff if you win this game. If you lose, who cares? Like, you're not going to the playoff anyway, and no one picked you to win anyway. And you lost anyway. And you kicked that field goal. Touchdown Maryland. Inexcusable. Inexcusable coaching. You had all the momentum in the world. You held the ball. OU had negative yards at this point in the game. You held the ball the entire first quarter. You had the ball into the second quarter. You go for it and you don't get it. Okay, fine. But at least process-wise, it's the right process. Kicking that field goal is a joke, especially with a backup kicker who's been garbage. Look, God bless Robert Meyer. He's probably going to transfer after this year because Blake Craig has 2 more years of eligibility. And God, please be healthy. The in-game and then at the end of the half, fourth and goal at the 3. You line up. It's clear you're going to run some kind of stretch play. Venables calls timeout. And then you line up and run that stretch play again. They stuff it. Fourth and goal at the 3. Clock's running. You call timeout with 18 seconds left? Oh, you didn't have a timeout. You could have run that thing down to 3 seconds, 2 seconds, whatever the hell you want. Kick the field goal, and then you don't have to kick it off. Yes, nothing happened. I understand that. But it's a process thing. That should have been the last play of the half, and it wasn't because you took a needless timeout with 20 seconds left. Stand by the official and call a timeout with 3 seconds left. Again, I normally think he does a pretty good job with that kind of stuff in the realm of college football. He was garbage today. I've talked about this for a couple years. I don't understand why he plays so freaking slow. The best the passing game looked today was at the end of the game when they played with a little bit of tempo because they're down 2 scores. And before the half, when, again, they played with some tempo because they were down. They needed a score. And then you get back into the half, and you start, inside of 10 seconds. We're going to huddle. We're going to play super duper slowly. Why? Why does this coaching staff insist on playing so slow? No one runs the freaking Chip Kelly Oregon offense anymore. No one runs at super speed anymore, but there's a tempo you can play with. And it clearly works for your team. Like, the best this offense has looked all year is when you play with tempo in the passing game. Run game has looked pretty good no matter what. Today was just a joke of a coaching performance from Eli. It just was. Again, punting at 4th and 3 near midfield to do what? Play field position. OU just converts a couple third downs. They basically punt it back to you at their own 40, and you've negated everything. You gained like 7 yards of maybe like 7 yards of field position from that punt, and you lost a ton of time. It's just a joke, man. Just a joke today. Do we want to go positive here for a second, or do we want to stay negative? OU beats Missouri 17-6 in Norman. You're listening to the Voice of College Football. This is Missouri Postgame Live. Congrats to OU. They're decent, what are their odds to beat LSU on ESPN, FPI, or whatever? 67%? They have a 67% chance of making the playoff. Like, they win and they're in. That deserves a lot of credit. Let's be positive. This defense is freaking awesome. The OU offense is not good. It's pretty awful. But with how bad your offense is, this defense, again, one awful play. Marvin Burks misses a tackle. Excuse me. And Satania goes off to the races. Things like that happen when you play good teams, like it did against Vanderbilt. I had a stat here. I believe it was from Brendan Kiley, St. Louis radio host. Let's look here. Okay. So besides that 87-yard play, Oklahoma averaged 3.1 yards per play. They were excellent. Again, they gave up an explosive. Teams are going to hit explosives. Oklahoma's a good team. They're very limited offensively, but it's a good team. And Arbuckle knows what he's doing. He just does. But if you look at the box score from Mizzou defensively, Zion Young had a sack. Damon Wilson had a sack. They had 2 sacks, 6 tackles for a loss. They didn't force a lot of negative plays, but OU got nothing in the run game. Xavier Robinson, long carry, was 6. John Mateer got 15 yards on 1 carry. On the other 17 carries, then he got 45 yards. That's 2.5 yards, basically, a carry. Outside of the 87-yard pass. If you take that 87 yards away from Mateer, again, I know the 87 yards happen. Explosives happen when you have a competent coaching staff offensively. If you take away that pass, Mateer is let's see, 100. So let's see. 13 of 29 and a touchdown. Minus 100 yards would be 73. So 13 of 29 for 87 yards. Or 86 yards. Doesn't seem that special. It's not. This defense was unbelievable today. And they play so damn hard, man. That's what I give Eli a lot of credit for. And Batoon, I'm sorry I ever talked bad about you. And I give Batoon a lot of credit. It does not matter if the season's over. It does not matter that they are playing for nothing. They play hard, and they play with pride. The game was over at 17-6, and they're still out there fighting their damn tails off. And they deserve a lot of credit and a lot of love for that. This is an awesome defense. This is a really great defense that's going to have to replace a lot in the portal and through young guys coming in and playing. Zion and Damon are probably on to the next level. We'll see if Darius Smith stays. I thought Darius Smith really come around in the second half of the season, so I kind of hope he stays as like your pass rusher. You're going to replace all your corners. You're going to replace your safeties except Burks. But man, they play so hard and they work their tails off, and they don't get enough love because this offense is garbage, and this team's going to finish at best 8-4. You have to really feel for this defense, but they continue to fight, and they deserve credit for that. So that's today's game. And again, of course, we're talking about today's game as we go more in. Oh, never mind. Let's get to this. Eric Lake, get his ass out of Columbia. This special teams is a joke. It's a joke. And I understand part of it is they have a backup kicker. You had one kick blocked from the same spot. The first kick almost got blocked. You can't punt. You did have one nice punt today that was down by Marquise Johnson. Shout out to him for making a nice play there. Your punting is a joke. You don't get anything out of your return game since you've been here against good teams. You had a punt return against like Incarnate Word. Cool. Your special teams is a joke. Get him out of Columbia. What has he done to earn such job security? Special teams have been a disaster outside of Harrison Mevis and Blake Craig. Get him out. Get him out. He's not good at his job. Hire Truman to run the damn special teams. It's a joke. It's just a joke. That's all I'm going to say about. Like, I have no more energy to spend on Eric Link, dude. Like, this is such a joke. But going to Eli, this is year 6. In year 6, you have had one season of adequate SEC quarterback play. And 2023, Brady Cook was very good. He was a top half of the conference quarterback. And in 2023, you had Carson Beck playing very well. Jalen Milroe was playing really well. Trying to think of the other quarterbacks around the conference around that time. Like, you had Joe Milton. Who did Mizzou play? Graham Mertz was at Florida. Who cares? Was it who was at Vanderbilt? Who cares? Still, top half of the Jackson Dart at Ole Miss. You had top half of the SEC in quarterback play. One time in 6 years. You know, I read a lot of websites. I read a lot of these boards, and I think to myself, like, these teams that want to hire Eli, like, what do they say? And what I keep seeing is innovative offensive mind and quarterback coach, good quarterback coach. I would love to see that coach show up to Columbia, Missouri. Let me reiterate, I think Eli's a net positive. I think it would be a bad thing for the University of Missouri if he leaves. I think he's a good recruiter. I think he has set a baseline of expectations at Mizzou. Not the playoff. That's probably never happening. As the schedule gets harder, not national championship. Playoff going to be incredibly difficult. But a baseline of what to expect as a talent level, as a baseline. Now it's going to get harder as now you start to play more teams that are good, but still, the point remains. But this is year 6, and you've had 1 year of good quarterback play. 2020, Bazelak showed flashes, and everyone points to that LSU game, and he was great in that football game. He was pretty good in a couple other games, but really kind of was a freshman. Like, he was pretty good for a freshman. 2021 was awful with Bazelak. 2022 with Cook was very mediocre. 23 with Cook, awesome. He was good. He was really good. 24 with Cook and Pine, awful. This year with Pribula and Zollers, awful. And I give him a little bit of leeway with Zollers because he's a true freshman, and he did play Vanderbilt and Texas A&M. Like, what do you want him to do? But Bo's been largely mediocre against teams that don't suck. Like Kansas, guys. I fell for it too. He looked really good against Kansas. He was really good against like Louisiana and whatever. He looked good. That's just not. He's not. He cannot. I know he has another year of eligibility. He cannot be the quarterback next year. He needs to be playing in the AAC or or down a level. I'm not saying he needs to be in like the MAC. Like, I don't think he's that bad, but he needs to be the next quarterback at insert AAC school here. Like South Florida, if Golish and Brown leave. School like that. He's not an SEC quarterback. And Mizzou's had 1 year where they've had a guy that is an SEC quarterback, and this is year 6. Year 6. Mizzou is not going to go anywhere if you're only getting good quarterback play every couple of years. And look, 2023 happened. Mizzou, if the 12-team playoff came about a year earlier, Mizzou was playing in Columbus. In the playoff that season. So that did happen. But this is year 6. And you've had 1 year where the offense was, I would quantify as good. And it was 2023 when you had a top 10 finisher for the Heisman at running back. You had a guy that everyone kind of thought was going to be a first-round pick, ended up being a second-round pick at wide receiver. You had Brady Cook, Theo Weiss. You had a few offensive linemen that got drafted, and you did not that great of a schedule, but that's not like you put up 27 points on Georgia, at Georgia. So it's hard to, Alabama beat them, and I think Alabama only put up 27 in a neutral. So the Mizzou offense was legitimately awesome. So it did happen. It is there under Eli. It's not under Kirby Moore. It's just not. Back-to-back years now of no semblance of a passing game, an adequate passing game. I don't care what level of talent you are. You have to be able to scheme things open, and he just can't do it. He has no ability to do it. So this is year 6 for Eli. He's still learning, man. He's still really young as a head football coach. I think some of these things will come with age. I do think today was a disaster, but I think most of the time he does a pretty good job with clock management. End of half, end of game type stuff. And that's why Mizzou does win a lot of close games, is because he does a really nice job of that. Today aside, they did not do a good job of it today. But have we, and we'll talk about this more Monday, as, another touchdown for Oregon. That was too easy. We're going to know in basically about 10 days if Eli is going to be the head coach at Missouri in 2026 and beyond. We might know sooner if he signs an extension. But we'll know in about 10 days what's happening with Eli Drinkwitz and the University of Missouri. I would like him to stay. I'll be honest, a couple days ago, I was really leaning that he was leaving. I just don't know anymore. I'm not going to pretend to know. Everything I read doesn't know. It felt like it was leading one way and then it leading the other way. So no one really knows. But we'll talk Monday if it feels like Missouri has hit a hard ceiling with what Eli can provide. And look, if that ceiling is 7-8 wins, as a floor, that's really good. That's not like anything to be upset about. It's just kind of where you are as a program. And we'll see as the schedule gets tougher, what that ceiling or floor may be. But I do think Eli is a good football coach. There's a lot of people on Twitter today, blasting, again, Brendan Kiley and some other guys, and I don't really like Brendan Kiley all that much, but who are saying, look, Eli is a good coach. Record against top 10 guys. Gary didn't win games against these types of teams. He got one, and that was OU in 2010. He never beat these teams. Neither did Barry. Neither did anybody at Mizzou. Guys, this is NIL. NIL has elevated Missouri. It has. It elevated a lot of other people too. NIL introduces parity. Not really. For every Indiana, there's still Oklahomas and Texases and not Texas A&M, but Texas A&M's always had money. They just can get out of their own way. And Georgia's and Bama's and congrats to Ole Miss, but Ole Miss has an outstanding coach. If you have an outstanding coach, you can do a lot of great things. And I am wondering if this coaching search and this coaching offseason, no matter what happens, if this offseason is what leads to the bubble pop in coaching, because these contracts are getting ridiculous. So if you're a B job like Missouri potentially would be, do you go out and try and hire the biggest name and pay him $9 million? Or do you hire a B guy and give him 5 to 6 and then give all that money to NIL and the players? I don't know, but I think I would do. But year 6 under Eli, and it's crazy too, because before the season, I said 8-4. And they're probably going to finish 8-4, maybe 7-5. But then you look at the process and how this has gone about. You're a couple plays away from 9-2. You were the A&M game. I'm throwing out, maybe even 10-1. The A&M game, I'm kind of throwing out. You're probably never going to win that one. But you had every opportunity to beat Vanderbilt. You had every opportunity to beat Alabama. This is not a great Alabama team. It's a beatable Alabama team. And they've gotten worse. I had them as my national title team before the season. Probably wrong on that one, to be fair to me. Probably Ohio State again. But you had every opportunity to beat them. You had every opportunity to beat Vanderbilt. You had every opportunity to beat Oklahoma. And you just haven't. Be it coaching, special teams has played a big part of that. Offensive inability to create explosives has been a huge part of that. Obviously, but like your offense, we had the quarterback injury against Vandy, but Zoller scored 7 against Vandy. Bo scored 3. Like, Bo isn't good. He cannot be he has another year eligibility. He cannot be the quarterback next year. It has to be Matt or a transfer. We'll see what happens if Drink stays. If not, hire a coach who brings his own. Like, hire Eric Morris and bring that kid Nestemaker with him because he's really good. And it'd be a really cool story. Again, I'd have the same thing I had with Mateer, where I'd be a little nervous about him stepping up big time, but it is what it is. This is year 6. And I think by year 6, we kind of know what a program is going to look like under a head coach. There can be peaks and valleys. Like, look at James Franklin at Penn State. It started off because they were going through their sanctions and whatnot. They win a Big Ten title. They win 10 games a couple times with McSorley, and then they sink back a little bit with COVID, and then they come right back were they good in 22? It was 21. Clifford got hurt, but they were good in 22, 23, 24. And then this year, obviously, things just fell apart, and it was time for Franklin to go, and that's a really nice hire by Virginia Tech. But so even like coaches can have peaks and valleys, but you kind of know what to expect from a program. I think at this point you have to realize what to expect from Mizzou, and that's going to be, at times, ugly football. Ugly, ugly, ugly football. We're not going to get into speculation about coaches because we don't know. And if Eli does leave, look, I'll be live that night, and I'll be talking for hours, and we'll do cop boards. Yes, like I've said it multiple times. I can pull up a Google Doc in 2 seconds of who I would look at for Mizzou to hire. I'll give you a hint. They all involve team coaches that I think can coordinate a passing attack. Anyway, but let me finish with that when it comes to talking about Eli. I think he's a good coach for Mizzou. I think he's a great coach for Mizzou. Yes, there's the knock he doesn't win big games, but Gary rarely won big games. Like, what's Gary's biggest upset win at Mizzou? A home over an Oklahoma team that won the Big 12, yes, but didn't compete really for anything. Like, they compete. They got into a BCS bowl, but they were not a national title team. 2013, they beat a top 10 Georgia, but Georgia finished 8-5. Like, that wasn't that crazy. They lost to South Carolina team that eventually finished in the top 5. They lost to Auburn, who eventually finished. Oklahoma State in the bowl game. That's not an upset though. They were favored. 2007, they weren't really favored. They weren't really upset by anybody. Maybe beating the crap out of a Texas Tech team that a year later went nuts. In 2007, what was Gary's big time win? Today would have been for Eli. Program's in a different spot. I understand that, but I guess what I'm trying to say is Mizzou historically has never, at least in my lifetime, has never won these games. So, Eli can't win the big one. Yeah, neither could Gary. Neither could, obviously, of course, Barry Odom couldn't. He did get the one over Florida in 2018, but still. Neither could Eli. And that's an issue that it is an issue. You have to be able to win games like this, especially as we go to the 9-game conference schedule. And you're going to be playing more teams like this. You're going to sub out UMass or Northern Illinois, whoever the hell else is on the schedule, for Tennessee or Oklahoma. Or Oklahoma's always going to be on the schedule, but for Tennessee or Ole Miss, LSU, Bama, Auburn, these programs that maybe aren't amazing, like Auburn, but they're better than UMass. So today, I thank God I talked about Kirby Moore and I talked about Oklahoma for a few minutes because I came on here pissed and I was going to yell and scream, but I'm not doing that, obviously. Again, I haven't done as much research on like offensive coordinator candidates if Kirby Moore were to leave, just because that's a little harder. But I probably will work on that tomorrow. Hey, bloody. He's yelling about the Mizzou offense too. You want to come on? You want to come on screen, Ollie? Come on. Come on, buddy. You can come on screen. Little baby. Less cowardly than Eli's coaching today, though. But you have basically three coordinators. You have your offense, defense, and special teams coordinators. Two of them need to go. Corey Batoon can stay. Corey Batoon's awesome. I am sorry for how much bad I said against after the Alabama game. He has been nothing short of great this entire time. The Kansas game was bad. Fine. He's been great otherwise. And it's foolish to say otherwise. But Link needs to go. If Eric Link is the special teams coordinator next year, that's reasonable to fire Eli. Like, it just is. Like, your special teams has been a net negative more often than not. And the only reason it wasn't a just outright disaster is because you did have Harrison Mevis and you have Blake Crick. You haven't had a good punter in like half a decade. How does USC receivers are so damn good. Good God, what a catch. Today was eye-opening from like a big picture kind of way where, look, Mizzou's going to go 8-4 if they win a bowl game, 9-4, and that's still overall a pretty successful season. It's still one of the better seasons in Mizzou football history. But it feels like you left a lot of meat on the bone when it comes to what you could have accomplished. You could have beaten Alabama with just some better execution, which comes down to the players, and some better coaching. You should have beaten Vanderbilt. You should have won this game. You had all the momentum in the world, and then you cowered. In 5 minutes, you lost the game. In 5 minutes, because of one cowardly decision. Again, no guarantee they pick up a 4th and 3, but like the odds of you picking up the 4th and 3 are higher than of you making that field goal. And then you kick another field goal inside the 5, and then you punt on 4th and 3. And that just can't happen at this level. Some of these mistakes that we've seen now compound, they just can't happen. So we'll be live Monday, of course. We'll talk more about this game and kind of what it means long-term for Mizzou and OU. Again, congrats to them. Like, OU's going to make the playoff if they beat LSU. Whatever their percent chance of beating LSU is, it could be, I don't know what it is. I don't have it right in front of me, but 70%, 72%, whatever. They have a 72% chance of making the playoff. Like, that's – and OU deserves a lot of credit for that because they lost to Texas. They lost to Ole Miss, and they still had to go to Tennessee. Still had to go to Bama. Still had to play Mizzou. Still had to play LSU. And LSU hadn't quite fallen off the map yet. 4 very losable games. OU could have been staring 8-4, 7-5 in the face, and they rallied and they've won all these games, and that deserves credit, man. That deserves a ton of credit. But Mizzou let an opportunity slip away today because of cowardly coaching, inept offense, and that's the second game this year against a borderline playoff team or a playoff team. Vanderbilt's borderline. OU is a playoff team. That you blew it. You just outright blew it because you have no ability to be constructive on offense or be against good teams. You had the one drive against Alabama. That was about after the opening script, and that was it. I think that's about it for me. If anybody else has any comments or go ahead and drop them in while I kind of wrap up here. As you're listening to Missouri Postgame Live here at the Voice of College Football. Again, I want to thank Mark Rogers for letting me do this. This is a lot of fun. We'll be back next week for one last show. As far as I know, guaranteed after Arkansas next week at 2:30. Kind of depends when the bowl game is. Like, I do work. It's going to be, guys, ESPN, Fox, and the works have killed bowl season. So I'll try and do a show after the bowl game, but like more than likely, probably if it's like a 2:00 bowl game on a Wednesday, I can't skip work for it, So, but we'll do one more show. Obviously, it's going to be crazy over the next 10-ish days. We're going to figure out if Eli's staying, where he's going, what Mizzou's candidate pool is going to look like, and with the early signing day and how college football works now, that's all going to move really quickly. I would be shocked if Laird Veach isn't at least back channeling some guys he may want, not knowing if Eli's staying or going. Now, he may know, and if he does know he's leaving, he better be back channeling. Hey, so-and-so, don't take that job quite yet. If Eli leaves, we'd like to hire you. Here's the package, whatever. But, this was a lot of fun. I love doing it again this year. We'll have some fun in this offseason, no matter what happens, following the portal, recruiting. But yeah, I mean, we went for an hour today. Nobody commented. So I'm just talking to myself for an hour. That's pretty fun by me. Like I said, I would do that by myself anyway. Guys, I walk 15,000 steps a day. I do talk to myself a lot. I'm not crazy. I swear. Good Lord, it's going off the rails. But just an inexcusable coaching day from Eli. It just is. You can catch Missouri Tigers live on your favorite audio platform. We'll be back on Monday for our last game preview and of the year. Mizzou takes on Arkansas. Currently playing Texas. I don't know the score of that game. Let me take a look. I'll put that. Let's see. What game am I going to put on my? Okay, they're down set. God, Arkansas's defense is so bad. What game am I going to put on my laptop here when I'm done? Oh, Missouri State, Kennesaw State. Hell yeah. Yeah, definitely putting that game on. But thank you guys all for tuning in. I will be back on Monday, 7 o'clock. We'll preview Arkansas. We'll talk more about this game, and then we'll do the normal national news, SEC. Not going to be a lot of SEC news this week because we'll talk about Kiffin. But it's cupcake week for the SEC, so that goes away next year, so that'll be fun. But thank you guys all for tuning in. I will see you on Monday. Really disappointing loss. MIZ and what this next 10 days have a chance to be crazy and program changing for the Missouri Tigers. So you all have a great weekend. Enjoy your NFL, enjoy your college football, and I'll see you then.